But you're welcome to ask questions, share anything that's in your
I have
space.
one more question. Sorry. In the beginning, someone said, I think you said, Adam, that the woman, was it the woman who got connected with the egg farmer
Yeah.
that had student that had the child with autism? That's why she started it. Did you say that? Or
The curiosity conversation that she had in our program was with a farmer, and that farmer's son has autism, and he started that farm because of his son. So
okay. Okay. Thanks.
connection, if you're open to it. Yeah.
I would like to connect with that person if it's possible.
We'll share your email with her. Absolutely, no problem.
Please, thank you.
She's such a lively lady. Absolutely,
Yeah.
you'll love it.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I think Richard will appreciate this, the serendipity of life. The way that they met was she went up to him on the side of the road and literally said, "I'm destined to meet you."
Yeah.
That was how she opened the conversation, and now it blossomed. She received 3 200-yard rows to experiment, like for her own garden, to practice and to just plant whatever. And now she's basically the right hand on the farm, and all from "I was destined to meet you."
Wow. Yeah. I love it. It's the way it works.
Yeah.
How did you get to meet Zach, Dr. Bush?
Oh, who met Zach Bush? Who was the one that said that? You did. Oh my gosh. You lucky duck.
Well, he's in Charlottesville. Yeah, he's part of the Academy of Integrated Medicine docs that my wife and I work with. So, yeah, he's got some. He started this whole thing many years ago. I watched him on an interview the other day, overlaying the the whole map with the use of glyphosate over the whole map that shows where the majority of cancer is, and they just they overlay each other.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
They might have left. Someone did bring up a question earlier of like, how does this help with like my neighbor, and my neighbor's spraying on my line, and how do I engage with that? Is that person still on here? Did they have to jump?
Not necessarily, but
okay.
Are you talking about how do you, like, if you have a neighbor that's spraying stuff for their weeds on their lawn and it's drifting onto yours and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and that was the question that they asked.
There's a lot of really good research out there, and as you two already know, my wife and I are heavily into research and working with people at national and international level. There's ways, if you've got a question like that, then you just go provide in their hand. A lot of times they don't know. What I have found with all the people I have been dealing with most of the time from where I was at with the government for years and coming down is they're just not aware. And once you start making them aware, then that gives them the opportunity to make a choice and get informed about something, and kind of puts it back into their little quiver and say, yeah, if you realize that this does A, B, C, and D, and if this also damages the mitochondria in your body and can have you have these kinds of effects, you may want to change your practices for your own good, not just for mine, but also because it'll help you. I mean, there's a lot of research out there we can provide to people. Everybody you have come in here have their own background and subject matter expert backgrounds. So Henrik and I have been talking for years about stuff. So yeah, I mean, so that helps, because
absolutely.
Then it's no longer coming just from you. It's like I'm a disgruntled neighbor that doesn't like what you're doing. No, this is something you've got to be able to make a choice on.
That's one of the things, right? How do we get to that point where we can actually now share information? Because one thing is sharing information, and then again the question is, are people able to absorb information, and what will take it for us to get to that space where, okay, let's say, Adam, you want to come and tell me something about climate. Sure. What would it take? How would you need to do that so that I would be willing and open and to receive information, right? That's really a good question, I would think.
Glenn, would it be bad to lovingly lovingly challenge this.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of stuff with high school students. So those are the stories that are like front and center of my mind. And most of the high school students that come are like, they're very passionate about a thing, whether it's glyphosate or like climate change is often the one that we engage on. And they're like, if they only knew the facts and figures, if they only knew this, they would make a difference because they'd have a choice and they could do this instead of that. And exactly what Henrik is saying is like, someone came up to you with a piece of paper and the facts and the figures, which is what happened with COVID, which is what happens with anything of like, if you know the facts, if you know the truth, then you'll do what I think is right. When the students were then practicing this different way of approaching, which is not just jumping out and being like, did you know this? Did you know that? And people are doing things for good reason. And so Brooke, for example, modeled this very beautifully, where she does disagree with a lot of the stuff that they're doing. Now, by seeing the positive ripples of that human being, allowed her to engage in a conversation and discover the really, really good intent and the dynamics of the situation that she had no idea about before. He can't just go do all these other things. Just given the factors at play, like it's not as simple as it might sound.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing things for really good reasons that are having really positive impacts right now as well. And they ended up, didn't share this earlier, they ended up talking for like 2 hours or something like that. And then he got invited to come to the farm and talk more. But I imagine if she opened with, why are you doing this? Here's all the better stuff about non-GMO. Zero shot they would have had any conversation. And she actually had to call him a second time. And when he answered, he was like, I didn't want to talk to you at first because I was worried it was going to be the telling conversation, which is not what a gratitude-based curiosity conversation is. And so if we want a different outcome, we'll need to approach it through a lens of connection. Yeah.
Adam, do you think it'll be okay to share that story about the race car driver from one of our students that joined the fellowship?
Oh yeah.
Because
I'm gonna.
I've
you'll tell
found
this better than I will.
Oh boy, this is, one of the students coming into our fellowship programs, and she was just this very, let's say, environmentally aware person. Sharing.
And Henrik, one bit
Yep.
of context. She's in Switzerland at an elite boarding school. So she's with a lot of high flyers and a lot of different stuff
there.
With just a little bit of context.
Sure. And so sharing how she'd been, we come in, we share what we're doing and what we're passionate about and all of these things. And she was sharing how they were having an event and putting out this how to say, information about climate. Okay. And there's this race car driver coming up and just with a really different mindset about carbon emissions and you need to go out and have fun in life and this is all bullshit, right? The thing was that she was coming in with this mindset, well, we're just providing information, right? And it's up to you if you like to take it or not. Sure. But it was coming from this mindset of, hey, I know better than you. That was shining through to me so much more that, okay, take it or leave it. Sure, here's some information. We are right. Okay. And so there was no real opening or information flowing. At least there was no receptance for different points of views. She was totally closed off from this guy, and he was totally closed off from whatever she was providing. And there was this, wow, she, in our program, I dare say, had a real epiphany about, wow, what she needs to do next time if she would like to provide information. And so it's so crucial for how we are coming in and how we build that space for information to flow. And that's so tough. But the point is that we can get to that space where information can flow, right? Different points of views. Sure. Different numbers, figures, facts, Sure. That's amazing. If we can get to that where I could learn from you and might be able to learn a bit from me as well.
Well, and you've got triggers, and you guys know this. You've got triggers. I experienced this a lot this whole last year, studying with the Colson Fellows and looking at a Christian worldview. Well, there's the first thing that stops the flow of information, that word Christian.
Mhm.
And now you're talking to the LGBTQ community, and they automatically are going, I mean, so getting over that just the verbiage of where you're coming from, whether it be a climate change or a GMO farmer or an industrial farmer or that stuff. You've got these hurdles that are already there that you know you're going to run into, and figuring out how to deal with them is basically the key to the first step to open the door, which has got to be opened or you have no exchange of ideas.
It's an art, not a science. It's an art.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So,
Yeah. Well, Lucky, Richard, what are you guys taking away from today?
Well, what's come to me is that humility is really important. That to start the conversation, even with gratitude-based, one needs to be prepared to be the person that changes the most, as opposed to the person that tries to do the changing. Realize that we need to be open to change just as much as who we're talking to should, or as much as we would want them to be as well. And then I have another question. So this presentation has leaned more towards looking at positive effects in what we would term as negative. And that's the way I took the gratitude-based learning thing, is to try to look for positive effects in something that you see negative. Doesn't work in the reverse. So I know oftentimes there is people talking that have so much positivity that it's unrealistic. So do you then try to balance that? So, I mean, I looked up the definition of gratitude, and I think gratitude can work in that direction as well.
Let me make sure I'm understanding. Is what you're saying that if you're trying to be overly positive about everything, just like if you're trying to be overly grateful about everything, like you almost have this toxic effect? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that I've talked to that who just will not look at what I call reality.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then, I mean, feeding them with more gratitude.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
Good point.
This is such a good point. This is
also dealing with narcissists. And I listened to a really good Daniel Schmotzenberger today that he was interviewed 14 days ago, and he made a brief statement about all of us having a bit of narcissism in us, which I was like, so it's also feeding the narcissists is a sketchy thing.
You're making me realize there is a slide that we didn't have in here that I'm like, oh, we should have put this one back in. Because you're so right.
I mean, you started with light in the dark.
Yeah.
And you presented more towards the light, and the dark requires as much attention, I believe.
Yes.
That's why this is an 8 meeting thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot here.
That begs the question, or at least the point of view, which I typed in here, then I deleted. Okay, you're opening up conversation, gratitude-based learning, and all that. I ran into this with Colson Fellows because, okay, so you're having engagements and you're dealing with different points of view. You're not going to get rid of what you consider right and wrong. I mean, if you are solely firmly convinced that your point of view is right, then ultimately you're going to reach that point during the conversation with anybody, whether it be about farming or Christ or abortion or whatever everything else, that you're going to hit that point. And that takes some either realization that you know that you're trying to convince somebody to accept where you're at, or you're going to agree to just disagree and say, fine, we can do that. There's levels and tiers of agreement, and say, this is not a killer. We're not going to die because we disagree on this, versus, yeah, this one might kill you, and I'm not going to give an inch because I'm not willing to go down there just for my own sake. So I think we hit those points in any kind of a conversation. And I think any kind of a conversation, you've got to know them yourself. You're talking about being a narcissist. Knowing where you're at and what your point of view is and what you're willing to and not willing to give on is part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Thoughts?
it's not really a conversation then, because you're going in with biases and you're trying to change the other person to your bias. And so it's not really a conversation.
Well,
so
that's an open mind thing that I agree with Adam and Henrik about and have learned about. I may go in, I went in with some very, very biases obviously about different communities that I've dealt with. But after listening to their reasoning and things, my approach to them and also my attitudes towards them has changed. So I think sometimes being aware of your biases can give you the opportunity to open doors and not feel threatened. That makes sense?
Right. I think it's important here that gratitude-based learning is not about changing your point of view. Okay. I'm not asking anybody to change their point of view about climate or anything else, but I'm asking people to open their mind to learn from people that have a different point of view, a different experience, a different mindset, etc. And to your point there, Richard, was yes, we definitely need to also embrace the negative, right? Looking or being so reluctant to even go there, that's not building our capacity, in my opinion. If we only want to be here in positive all the time, and we can't even see or be in that space or, about the negative, that's not a whole being. There's positive and negative in just about anything. And if we can sit with it and observe it and, explore it, I think that's a bit more healthy than wanting to be only here. Now, what I was sensing your question was, if people are so overly positive, are we going to ask them to come down? Not necessarily, if that is absolutely authentic.
Yeah.
Adam, he was sharing that word today. And if it is authentic, sure, great, good. I don't need to bring you down if you're authentically grateful. Sure.
But if you're authentically suppressing, if you're like, oh no, I need to be grateful and I'm going to suppress my actual feeling, well, if we're just suppressing, it's going to blow up at some point. So I would love to ask for some feedback, actually, Richard, because so there's the light and the dark. Both exist. Much of what we're conditioned to, and this is my perspective here, and this is why part of today was designed in such a way. Much of our conditioning is to see the darkness, see the problems, go there. And so it's why when we are giving a taste of stuff, we're learning how can we see the light. And then one of the phrases I shared was microdosing vulnerability. Like we're leading with love. We're starting with how can we see the light, even in someone I agree with right now. So in the program, we don't, Brooke went wild and chose the most challenging person that she could think of. That wasn't our recommendation, but that was up to her.
That's Brooke.
What we like to do is lead with love. So choose someone that you currently do see eye to eye with, you do admire, you do see the light in already. How do we practice this very real stuff of like setting boundaries and having conversations and all that stuff with someone we actually agree with, or at least we think we agree with, and then we build toward those more difficult situations. But if we didn't want to lead with the darkness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, I guess what I'm asking is like, how do we, right? Because right now we're in the after space here. How do we, because there's other people that didn't get to the benefit of this conversation together that might have left and being like, this is just a toxic positivity space. They're kumbaya everywhere. And no one's actually able to say that I disagree with you. And like, no one's allowed to be pissed off ever, because being pissed off is a bad emotion. How do we, and this might be something that needs more thought afterward, but like, that's, I guess, what's on my mind is like, how while in the session can we help that come across more wholly?
So there's two people that I admire that I follow regularly. One is Daniel Schmatzenberger, the other is Stephen Jenkinson. They're both people that when they're interviewed, they will just say, no, I think you're wrong, and this is why. And they do it in such a kind, loving, genuine way that nobody ever feels put down or anything. And I'm still trying to learn as much as I can from them, because they will basically wallop them along the side of the head, and they won't even realize that they've been walloped. So I think good conversations can happen without having to cave or to. I'm one that likes exciting conversations. I don't like small talk. So to say, oh yeah, and keep it light, you're going to lose me in a conversation. I want to learn something from you. And so I will challenge you to learn from you. So I need to get better at doing that in a more loving, less aggressive way. But I think it's really important to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have to pull people into the conversation, and I want to hear from you why you think what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay for me to keep questioning because I don't understand, though I genuinely want to know. So, and some people, the minute they are questioned twice, shut down.
I think that's why we call it Leading with Love, this program. Because if you come from that place of leading with love, though that energy about you when you're engaged with, that will be, if that's authentic, you can't go wrong. And it will happen more and more naturally. So
I have a friend who we'll see if he chooses to join the program or not. Literally yesterday, we had the same conversation, Richard, and you might as well have just been describing him in what you were just sharing of, he is going to push you to the extreme because he wants to learn from you. And what we're talking about, though, is you might be asking the same exact questions. And this is why I think, is it Daniel Schmatzenberger? And I've never, I need to look up both those people because I've not heard of them before.
They will challenge.
They might be saying the same exact thing as you might be saying. But the conversation with my friend was about if the feeling of judgment is behind it, the same question might have this totally different reaction. If it's coming from a place of genuine appreciation and curiosity and like it just love versus judgment, the same exact question can give off totally different energy. Which is why it's, again, art, not science.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end, because understanding this is art. Yeah, it's something that takes practice, and what colors or what flavor you will put into it, I'm not to tell you what is right.
Does it necessarily work with everyone? I mean, if people are lacking self-love, I don't see how it can necessarily work with everyone.
You said it best, Richard, which is it starts by changing ourselves. And the way we change ourselves and the way we interact with others provides the opportunity for others to flow on their life journey. And where the universe is meant to take them, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it changes. We're changing us. We're not changing other people.
Yeah.
Lucky, can I ask you to close us out here if that's okay? Because I know we've got a call with actually a teacher who's bringing this all over in 2 minutes. But I've been seeing your face and would love to get to hear your voice if you want to close us out here.
You guys seem to be right on it. Richard just said something about you need to pull people into the conversation. And I know I tend to be more pushy than pulley, and I know better, but then when I hear what I've done, it's like, no. So yeah, we all need to be able to present something in a way that we can get the positive result that we're looking from. And you guys seem to be, on to that very well. It sounds simple, and yet it's not as simple. I don't have anybody in my life to kick me under the table when I'm going in the wrong direction, which makes it tough. But yeah, I appreciate the information today. It's right on it.
It's a pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank
Getting
you,
to know
everybody.
you, and this after party again, best part, right? We get to really talk and connect and share. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
So you made it beautiful. Thank you, all of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.